Hi everyone. Today I've compiled a video about a topic which has been quite hot of late. That is the concerns people are having around 5G. Now there are a few conspiracies and a bit of fake news going around about the rolling out of this technology and the reasons and effects this technology will have on the general population. Many of these conspiracies are about linking 5G towers to causing the coronavirus, with the evidence being the virus is clustered where the towers are most prevalent. This theory is really taking the idea of correlation equals causation to the extreme. Let me emphasize that this is just an idea and has been proven not to be the case in many examples throughout history. So correlation does not always equal causation. A further twist on this theory is that if you look at the history of rolling out new transmitting technologies, there has been a linked global virus. Often the trends will sound a little bit like this. In 1916, we have the emergence of radio waves. In 1918, the world sees the Spanish influenza outbreak. In 2003, 3G technology is rolled out around the world. The same year, we have the outbreak of SARS. In 2009, we see 4G being spread out around the world, and this coincides with the global spreading of swine flu. So many of the conspiracy theorists are really pushing for people to see a connection between COVID-19 and the current rolling out of 5G based on these historical coincidences. The reality is, however, that every year there are new viruses and diseases sprouting up all around the world, which could be deadly to humans, while at the same time, humans are regularly, looking for ways to improve elements of everyday life, including communication technology. So these technological and viral timelines are going to always throw up these coincidences if you look close enough. This isn't the most ludicrous of the conspiracy theories. I read about one theory believed that the vaccine for coronavirus will see small microchips implanted in humans. When coupled with the 5G technology, the government will be better able to monitor people's movements and behaviours, making this the classical George Orwell approach to the theory. I also saw someone trying to explain that the British government has already communicated the link between 5G and coronavirus on the new £20 note. Usually I find conspiracy theories entertaining and good value, but I have never really bought into any of them if I'm to be totally honest. However, there was one other conspiracy theory related to 5G I came across which did raise my eyebrows. This theory centered around the idea that the electromagnetism emitted from the 5G towers will be detrimental to our health. Now, this is an old story which has gone around in different forms for a while now. For example, when I was growing up, many people were scared that holding their mobile phone to their head while speaking would lead to the brain cancer or some other major detriment to one's health. However, other recent research I have done since being in isolation due to coronavirus has made me really think there is something to this story worth thinking about, especially considering the increased power of the signal being emitted from the new 5G towers. To further explain the potential impact of electromagnetism from cell phone towers, I want to introduce you all to someone named Charles McGill, known by those close to him as Chuck. Some of you may have heard of him before. Charles McGill was one of the named partners of Hamlin McGill, or HHM for short, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The firm was at one time regarded as the premier legal firm in New Mexico, and Charles's fellow named partner Howard Hamlin regarded Charles McGill as having the best legal mind of anyone he had ever met. Charles McGill had to take an extended leave of absence from the firm when he became sick with an unrecognised disease, hypersensitivity to electromagnetism. The disease hasn't been formally recognised, however, there is some evidence to suggest that lab mice are susceptible to this. Charles's affliction, which was well documented in his personal journals, led him to staying at home, living in darkness, because the mere electromagnetic emissions from outside power lines would cause him to feel great pain, and long exposure to this sort of presence of the power lines had even caused him to pass out on occasion. This led to Charles living in isolation for years. His only contact with the world was through his younger brother James, or as he is better known, Jimmy McGill. Jimmy would regularly bring him food and drinks and ice to keep his food cold and gas to power lamps around his house. Basically anything Charles needed, Jimmy would get for him. On one occasion, when Charles had passed out from exposure to electromagnetism, he was taken to a hospital which caused him to go into a prolonged comatose state due to the high levels of electromagnetism he was exposed to from hospital equipment and artificial lighting. The only reason he recovered from this was because his faithful younger brother Jimmy had the common sense to shut off the lighting and electricity to the devices that were surrounding him. The height of Charles McGill's affliction coincides with the switching from analog phone signals to digital signals. Charles accounted that he didn't always have this affliction and experienced it as a condition that slowly got more severe and caused him to become socially cut off from his community over time. Charles's condition impacted his life in many ways. Aside from causing him to virtually spend the rest of his life living isolated and in darkness, it stopped him from pursuing the love of his life. He felt so ashamed of his condition that he decided to break off his long-term relationship rather than revealing his condition. It hampered him continuing on with his high-flying legal career, which was a true desire of Charles's. This was despite extraordinary accommodations being made by Howard Hamlin and the HHM firm. Some of these accommodations included being chauffeured to and from the office when necessary. Also, when Charles was at the office, the firm would switch off all lights and all staff members would be required to surrender mobile phones and watches, which would be kept away from Charles so as to not cause him any pain. HHM also later assigned a junior member of the firm, Ernesto, to run errands for Charles on a daily basis, something which was definitely out of Ernesto's job description. Some of the legal work Charles did do when he was trying to reintegrate with HHM led to him losing a huge client, the bank Mesa Verde, because of a simple error in filling out of legal paperwork necessary to be filed with the state of New Mexico by Charles and HHM. Interestingly, this event is likely to be the catalyst which drove Charles and, at the time, faithful brother Jimmy apart, as Charles tried to blame the simple error on his younger brother, which eventually led to a personal and legal clash between the two brothers. Courts found that Jimmy was not the cause of the error. However, it led to Jimmy being temporarily suspended from practicing law and a lasting grudge between the two brothers. Following a succession of further professional blunders by Charles, Howard Hamlin tried to encourage him to retire and wanted to buy out Charles's share, which at the time was estimated to be worth about $19 million. However, Howard's offer was significantly below this level and caused a major rift between the two partners. In hindsight, it would have been near impossible for HHM to pay out the value of Charles's stake in the company due to a lack of liquidity and the loss of the firm's revenues due to the downward trajectory the company's value was heading. At this point in Charles's life, he had no close friends, he had fallen out with his law firm, and him and his only surviving direct family, Jimmy, his brother, hated each other. So it was truly sad to hear that Charles McGill, regarded as having one of the best legal minds, not just in New Mexico, but potentially all of the United States of America, died in a house fire that was caused by one of his gas lamps falling while he was doing some home renovations one night. Following the world's tragic loss of Charles McGill, it became more apparent that his firm HHM were on the decline. They had been hurt by the issues that Charles had brought upon it in his final months, but ironically, perhaps the firm was more brutally wounded by the passing of Charles and the loss of his leadership and sharp legal mind. As for Charles's younger brother Jimmy, once readmitted to the New Mexico bar, Jimmy changed his professional name to Saul Goodman. This was an attempt to distance himself from his brother's name and legal reputation. He also developed a professional reputation for representing less than honourable clients throughout Albuquerque, and often successfully. Some of his known clients included at times rumoured members of a Mexican drug cartel, as well as notorious ex-Philadelphia policeman Michael Ehrmantraut. Jimmy, now known professionally as Saul, was also later rumoured to have worked with the leaders of a global methamphetamine empire headed by a man, or potentially a woman, only known elusively as Heisenberg, which was alleged to have been of such scale that it involved the German-based global conglomerate Madrigal for global distribution. I must repeat, this is only rumoured, as this case went cold upon the disappearance of the investigating DEA agents Hank Schrader and Steve Gomez. Unfortunately, Jimmy has since seemingly disappeared. He was last seen with a local Albuquerque vacuum cleaner repairman, so it is at this stage impossible to get his account regarding his brother Charles's hypersensitivity to electromagnetism. But it makes me think that perhaps there is something to ponder regarding the health impacts of 5G. Given that HHM will not comment on the situation for legal reasons, Finding Jimmy McGill is perhaps the most important thing conspiracy theorists could dedicate their energy towards if they want to start to get some real evidence of the potential impacts of electromagnetism from 5G towers. I can't stress this enough to you guys. You need to spend your time finding Jimmy McGill. He's the key to all of this. I hope you guys found this video informative. If you are interested in trying to track down Jimmy McGill, there was a rumoured sighting of him working at a Cinnabon cafe in Omaha, Nebraska. I repeat, this is just a rumour and not a confirmed sighting, so I suppose if we ever do get out of this state of lockdown, it might be worth sussing that out. Anyway, until next time guys, stay off your phones and take care.